Whatever data they use, it doesn't matter. Your question implies that Donald Trump has a vote, that Donald Trump has a say, that Donald Trump matters. He doesn't matter in any of this. He thinks he matters, but he's already walked away from the magic phone call. Remember, I'm one phone call, I can stop this war. You can't, Donald Trump. Russia doesn't care about you. You're a buffoon. Stop being a buffoon, start becoming a serious man, and Russia may care about you. But the first thing to do to become a serious man is get good data. Okay, you have Tulsi Gabbard. Get her in as the director of national intelligence. Make that happen. Then turn to her and say, get me the good stuff. Okay, I'm not here with an agenda. I want the good stuff. Your best analyst. Don't spin it for me. You're not here to sell me a policy. I want the good stuff straight from the hip. The good stuff. But what's happened is the intelligence community's gotten so used to feeding presidents who say Russia must be bad. Imagine if somebody came in and said, boss, Russia's not a threat to us. Not at all. Russia's not going to invade Europe. The Russian military is sized appropriately for its own defensive needs. The troops that they've brought on since 2022 are solely because of NATO expansion and the conflict in Ukraine. If NATO were to be part of a rethinking of European security framework, such as the Russians proposed in their December 17, 2021 treaties, draft treaties, we could probably see the Russian military downsizing to a level that would be equivalent to what existed in 2021, which we didn't deem as a threat to Europe. That's the truth. That's the truth.
The world is watching, but the truth is being twisted. Intelligence, once the bedrock of decision-making, is now a tool of deception. What if everything we thought we knew about Russia, NATO, and the war in Ukraine was built on a lie? Scott Ritter just exposed what he believes is a fundamental flaw in the way intelligence is being handled. He argues that the Trump administration, if it returns to power, will be fed distorted intelligence shaped by pre-existing narratives, not objective facts. Ritter paints a grim picture, a U.S. leadership trapped in illusions, failing to grasp Russia's real intentions and blindly escalating a geopolitical crisis. His message is clear. Without a radical shift in how intelligence is processed, the next administration may stumble into catastrophe. As we just discussed, the political maneuvers surrounding Ukraine and its leadership have taken center stage, with Zelensky navigating an increasingly complex landscape of legitimacy and strategic alliances. But while the diplomatic and legislative battles rage on, the war itself continues to unfold with brutal intensity. The battlefield tells a different story, one of relentless Russian assaults and shifting front lines. Over the past 48 hours, the Russian military has launched a decisive offensive, marking one of the most aggressive pushes in recent months. Villages have fallen, Ukrainian defensive lines have been severely pressured, and the situation is rapidly evolving. The question is no longer just about political legitimacy. It's about survival on the front lines. Let's dive into what's happening on the ground. What is happening right now is a brutal reminder that while politics dictate the war's long-term trajectory, it is the soldiers on the ground who are paying the price for every strategic miscalculation, every delay in aid, and every failed counteroffensive. The past 12 hours have brought some of the most shocking developments of this war, with Russian forces making stunning territorial gains in the north, particularly in the Sudzha direction. In just 2 days, entire settlements have fallen under Russian control, marking one of the most aggressive advances in months. Villages that once stood as defensive barriers, Pohari, Arpova, and Staraya Serena, have been completely overrun. What was once a tenuous front line has now become a rapidly expanding Russian-held zone, cutting deep into Ukrainian positions. The battlefield is shifting in real time, and Ukrainian forces are increasingly being forced into retreat, desperately trying to hold the remaining strongpoints. The Russian military has intensified its armored assaults, using combined arms tactics that include heavy artillery barrages, drone reconnaissance, and mechanized infantry assaults. This offensive is not a scattered attack. It is a calculated, strategic push to sever Ukrainian supply lines and encircle key defensive positions. According to pro-Russian sources, the offensive has already moved forward 3 to 4 kilometers southward overnight, bringing Russian forces dangerously close to the strategic hub of Malolopan, which hosts a former prison facility now converted into a Ukrainian military outpost. The momentum of this assault suggests that Ukrainian forces in this region are facing a slow but inevitable collapse. The strategy is clear: push hard, cut off supply routes, and force Ukrainian units into isolated pockets where they will either surrender or be annihilated. With each passing hour, Russian forces are tightening their grip on the northern pocket. Reports indicate that the main Ukrainian supply line between Sudzha and its northern defenses is now under direct Russian fire control. If this road is completely severed, every Ukrainian soldier stationed north of this point will be trapped, left with only 2 choices: fight to the death or attempt a perilous retreat under relentless Russian bombardment. The collapse of this defensive sector could have devastating ripple effects across the entire northeastern front. Ukraine simply does not have the manpower or resources to absorb significant losses in both troops and equipment, especially with Western aid being delivered at a snail's pace compared to the Russian war machine's ability to replenish its forces. Ukrainian commanders are fully aware of the stakes, and they are throwing everything they have left into slowing the Russian advance. Artillery strikes, drone attacks, and even small-scale counteroffensives have been attempted to blunt the Russian push. However, these efforts are proving increasingly ineffective. Russia's ability to sustain its attack while constantly rotating fresh forces into battle is overwhelming Ukrainian defensive positions. Ukrainian forces are now fortifying positions along the N07 highway, a key lifeline in the region. However, reports indicate that Russian artillery fire and drone strikes are already pounding these defenses relentlessly, making it unlikely that Ukraine will be able to hold this line for much longer. While Ukrainian troops are fighting for survival on the battlefield, political developments in Kyiv are raising eyebrows. President Volodymyr Zelensky is preparing to travel to Washington, where he is expected to sign a landmark minerals agreement with the United States. This deal, which involves the joint development of Ukraine's oil, gas, and mineral resources, could mark a significant step toward deepening Ukraine's financial and security ties with America. However, the timing and optics of this move are fueling intense debate. Zelensky's critics argue that this agreement is not just about minerals, it's about legitimacy. With elections indefinitely postponed due to martial law, Ukraine's parliament recently passed a resolution reaffirming Zelensky's authority, a move that some see as an unconstitutional power grab. The passage of this law has sparked international scrutiny, with figures like Elon Musk openly questioning its democratic legitimacy. This has led to one of the most controversial accusations against Zelensky yet, that he is so desperate to maintain his rule that he will sign everything put in front of him, even if it means making deeply controversial concessions. His upcoming meeting with Donald Trump, who, if re-elected, could reshape U.S. policy toward Ukraine, adds even more uncertainty. Is Zelensky truly acting in Ukraine's best interest, or is he rushing to cement a deal in a last-ditch bid to secure Western backing for his continued leadership? Despite the political maneuvering, the reality on the battlefield is becoming increasingly dire. The Russians are grinding forward, and unless Ukraine receives significant reinforcements and ammunition supplies soon, they may lose control of yet another major front line. One of the most alarming reports suggests that Russian forces are now destroying up to 500 Ukrainian vehicles per month in the Sudzha sector alone. That's an unsustainable loss rate, especially considering that Western deliveries cannot keep up with the sheer scale of destruction. A single FPV drone squad is reportedly eliminating 10 to 15 Ukrainian vehicles per day, a staggering rate that underscores just how effective Russia's drone warfare capabilities have become. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces are rushing to construct defensive belts behind the current lines, hoping to buy time for a strategic withdrawal. However, there's no guarantee that these fortifications will hold once Russia shifts its offensive pressure further down the line. If the Ukrainians fail to secure these fallback positions in time, entire brigades could be cut off and destroyed. All signs point to an imminent and large-scale Russian breakthrough in this region. If Sudzha falls, the entire northern defensive line will be in jeopardy. Russian forces could use this momentum to push deeper into Ukraine, potentially threatening major cities and logistical hubs further south. The next 72 hours will be absolutely crucial. If Ukraine can hold the line and stabilize the situation, it might still have a chance to regroup and mount a counterattack. But if Russian forces maintain their current tempo and continue their relentless advance, this could mark the beginning of a major shift in the war, one that tilts even further in Russia's favor. The war is escalating on multiple fronts, on the battlefield, in Washington, and within Kyiv's own political corridors. The future of Ukraine is hanging by a thread, and the decisions made in the coming days will shape the outcome of this conflict for years to come. What do you think? Will Zelensky's latest deal with the U.S. bring Ukraine closer to security, or is it just a temporary distraction from the harsh realities on the ground? And can Ukraine hold off the Russian assault long enough to shift the momentum back in its favor? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on the latest developments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.